It's difficult to say when I began taking photographs because photography was always part of my life, really. My dad had a camera, which he had all through the war in his naval service, so there was always a camera about the house. And although there was never photography books or anything like that, we had picture posts. So there was always that kind of photojournalistic input there. And then when I failed 11 plus, there wasn't sort of much future in terms of education. And I remember my dad thinking, why doesn't he do a bit of photography? I had this camera, a cheap box Brownie, and I began taking photographs, and it absolutely transformed my life. I think perhaps they thought it was going to be a flash in the pan and I'd get bored after a couple of weeks, but 70 years on, I'm still doing it. When I left school at 15, there wasn't much option. Spot school, no exams, no GCSEs, no O-levels or anything. So I was very fortunate to get a job in Cardiff University. Then in 1967, I got a job with an American advertising and fashion photographer in Cardiff. Being from the States, he had all the books on photography, proper photography, documentary photography, that weren't available in the UK at the time. And those were all on his shelves. And so there was this whole other world of photography that opened up to me. And I realized that this is actually really what I wanted to do, not the commercial stuff. And so that's when I started doing my kind of serious documentary work. And then after a while, I realized that the two worlds kind of collided. I couldn't really concentrate on one while still doing the other because advertising, fashion photography was extremely demanding. So we both gave up our jobs, moved out to West Wales, literally stuck a pin in a map and came up with Atla Blacker. My work, if anything, is about the way people inhabit the world around us and the way we interact with our environment. And so that's when I started to notice the tin sheds. And I suddenly realized that this was a kind of symbol of the way that people lived and inhabited this space. And so I began that series of pictures, which got me out and about and which began to educate me in the way landscape worked, in the way environment and the way light and atmosphere and weather changed the landscape, the look and feel of the landscape. And in a sense, the sheds were my teachers, as it were, and the work grew from there. Cadair Idris came out of seeing this painting by Richard Wilson in the Winstay Hotel in Machynlleth. And I suddenly realized that after years of doing tens of thousands of miles of traveling around Ireland and north of England, that I really wanted to try and concentrate on one small geographic area to see whether I could tease out all those odd ideas I'd been exploring. And so I decided to do a body of work just on Cadair Idris. It ended up as a book and as an exhibition. And I also made a small portfolio of limited edition platinum prints. And in a sense, that sort of proved to me in a way that you don't need to, you can do things close to home and which are equally as meaningful as when you travel many thousands of miles. What I'm always love about the landscape is not so much the pretty picture. I'm not noted as someone who photographs pretty pictures, pretty scenes. The overwhelming majority of my pictures, if you look at them, are very, very ordinary places. And I suppose, in simple terms, what I'm trying to do is turn the ordinary into extraordinary and to celebrate those prosaic places. And to also tease out that this is the place where people live, this is a place that people inhabit, and there isn't a corner of Britain really that hasn't been touched, by humankind over millennia. And it's just taking the time to be able to stop and look at it. And by making a photograph, by making a statement, by making what is hopefully a beautiful photograph, people will stop and look and maybe rediscover something about the landscape and maybe about themselves as well. I do look back with a certain sense of pride because I've kind of ploughed a furrow, and all this work is not being commissioned. It's work that I've initiated myself, and I can see this kind of progression, natural progression, how I've progressed as a photographer, how I've changed, how I've evolved, and I've been able to put that back into the work and make what I think, what I hope people will appreciate as being fairly significant, and hopefully enrich their lives as well as in the same way as it's enriched mine. Oh God, I could cry.